Good evening and welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight is our commentator and economist, Jargalot DeFacto.
Good evening.
And my name is Dilgal. We're live on Facebook at VTelevision and we want to hear your thoughts, so send us your comments on Twitter with hashtag Jargal_DeFacto. Coming up on the program. Is it possible for price of electricity to be liberalized? Is there a way to minimize the risk from fuel prices? What influences the exchange rate of tugrik? So moving on to our first topic, according to a government resolution, 130,580 households are eligible for 50% to 100% discount on electricity tariffs. So of these 130,000 approximately, 128,509 will receive 100% discounts and 2,071 will receive a 50% discounts, and these duration of these discounts is expected to continue on from November 1st to March 31st. So are these electricity tariffs and discounts an attempt to reduce the emissions?
Exactly, because we did the same last year with the same terms from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Those families, which is mostly Gir district families, households, will have this discount, and this year we try again, but only in more extended way, because this time 21 IMAC province centers will be included, and also places or the population centers with more than 10,000 people will be also included into the program. On one side, on the other side, you know, this this power stations, because their load is going down substantially at night anyway, they sell it that with 3 times less tariff than a daytime. So it means these people will be free from those already discounted rates, which is one of the attempts to fight the smoke. And so how much does 1 kilowatt per hour of electricity cost, and how is this price set? In Mongolia, they buy electricity from the power stations at 90 tugriks per kilowatt, and then they plus the other additional costs of distribution and other whatever is included, then it comes to 140 tugriks as a cost, but it is sold at the 145 tugriks per kilowatt to households, the final consumers. And these prices of heat and power is established by the order of Energy Regulating Committee of Mongolia, Commission of Mongolia, and unfortunately, it is not yet fixed by or set by the market price. And
so most of these tariff discounts are being applied to mainly the Gir districts. Why is this?
Because again, it's because the source of power, the source of pollution of the air, one. Secondly, also because the tariff system in Mongolia set, as I said, this energy commission, but it is set in such a way that households pay less than legal entities or companies. Meanwhile, it is supposed to be the vice versa. Why? Because large companies, any economic entity, companies, because they buy large amounts of energy for long term, by months, years, they're supposed to receive less. And the households are supposed to pay more But in Mongolia, like the old time, households pay less. As a result, we have very lower rate of electricity, which otherwise should be at a certain level, that the all producers, distributors cover at least their costs, and they have certain profit margin, which will, or which is supposed to make attractive this industry for foreign investors to invest. And this time has gone. Mongolia had lost a chance to make already built, it could build up already the power station number 5. They did not. They could not on time due to many reasons. They have taken 20 years, they have laid their foundations 10 times, and at the end they have cancelled. You know what they are doing now? They are saying, reconstructing certain old turbines of power station number 4 and 3, and they say there is no other way, and like former Soviet republics, they will send those turbines, those producers in Russia, and they will get kind of after repairing, they say, oh, almost as new as always, almost as new, which is which I don't believe. After 40 years, some turbine is replaced and well, not replaced, repolished, and it comes as new. Instead of making a brand new, completely new technology, new power stations, that's the way we are selecting, just because the power price is too low in Mongolia.
And so moving on to our second topic of the night is the...
Before I move to the second topic, I would like to add one thing. Into this lower rate tariff of power stations, there is so-called 11 cents, 11 tugriks into the power tariff, added so-called support tariff for renewable energy sources, which means that the windmill and solar power stations their price is set very high in Mongolia, which is from, from 15 to 18 cents. That's why many Mongolian companies are applied to make new stations, new power solar energy mills. But the country cannot buy with this higher rate. One reason. The other reason is now the renewable energy costs, due to growth of technology, the innovation of technology, they became now twice less. So Mongolia is going to reconsider the renewable energy prices now, which is mostly now on the shoulder of consumers. And that's why they have drafted new law decreasing this price of set price of government purchase of the renewable energy. So hopefully they will solve this issue soon. That's one thing. And in general, power stations, the power is to be priced in such a way that it should, as I said, to cover the cost. Now, with the current rate of US dollar, 145 tugriks sold to the final consumer is around 5.8 cents, which makes power stations in Mongolia is completely cheap. It's in Russia a couple of years ago, it was 6.5 cents per kilowatt. In Korea, South Korea, 10, US 13, the Philippines 23 cents. So in Mongolia, in order to have a normal supply of power, we need to increase the price. And we need to decrease the price for companies and increase the price for families. In particular, those families living in the Daising area are paying the same price those who cannot pay for electricity. This is abnormal, and I think it's a time to reconsider this tariff policy of the power stations.
And so now moving on to our second topic. A liter of gasoline has increased, the price of liter of gasoline has increased by approximately 700 tugriks. And the Minister of Mining and Heavy Industries, Mr. Samir Bazar, recently said that he expects the price to increase in the coming month So most of our fuel is imported from abroad, which means that any increase in prices is mainly due to the foreign market. So are there any domestic factors which are influencing this fuel price?
Yeah, there are several domestic factors, but before that, I would like to mention another foreign factor, outside factor, outside of the country factor, is not only the price of the oil products, crude oil and oil products, but also the rate of Mongolian tugriks, exchange rate. That's very substantial factor. Now, dollar is becoming expensive all around the world, and dollar now, in Mongolian tugriks also we are depreciated certain by 170, no, by almost what 15 to 20%. In terms of the gasoline price, the minister is right, because this is something where it's something that don't depend on us. So first of all, the one thing is, yes, we 100% dependent on import, 98% from Russia, 2% from China, and China being more expensive than the Russian one. But however, for the alternative, we are keep buying more this year from China. The other thing is domestic. You asked about the domestic factor, is this called excise taxes. These excise taxes were used to keep the prices more or less, the retail price more or less at the normal level, because when the international price oil comes up, they are taking away the excise taxes. When it goes down, they are putting back. So more or less people were receiving at the same price for quite some time. But again, but however, after 10 years or so attempt, we should make a conclusion that we could not control the prices through this excise tax regulations, and we also could not have our taxes revenue, which otherwise, if we received, we could use for other social needs. So this excise tax regulation for the price of oil is not the best one we have seen.
And you just mentioned that excise taxes are not able to regulate the risks associated from fuel increases. So what are some of the ways to minimize the risks associated with increase in fuel prices then? Yeah,
first of all, the price increases because two things, I said, price and then exchange rate.
Yes.
So exchange rate is something that you cannot regulate. Exchange rate, it depends on two balances. One is trade balance, the other is payment balance. Trade balance of Mongolia is more or less no deficit, or more equal to each other, which means that, for example, we have increased our import for 40% year-on-year base for this year. Then it means we have bought the same amount of things as much as we have earned the dollar through our exports. But the concern is the payment balance. Payment balance is a negative, huge negative, because government is paying more US dollar debt and interest rates, and we receive less foreign direct investments. Unfortunately, we need to we need to stop this wrong directions. We need to have our budget without deficit, which unfortunately not the case. You asked me about how can we establish the price. Only way that the world knows, the world has tried, and which is working, is hedging. It's a financial instrument, and you agree to buy certain things at a fixed level, fixed price. For that you pay certain premium. But the only thing is, if this price comes up, you are still buying with lower price. But still, if the price goes down, you lose this premium. But however, it's the only way of keeping, if you need to buy things at a fixed price. This is a foreign exchange risk management, only thing. The other thing is, even this excise taxes, they in our law, they put absolute numbers. Say per ton of diesel, we will charge, say, 400,000. I don't know exactly, but 400,000 tugriks. Instead, they would say it can be expressed by dollar. Expressed by dollar, but by tugriks it can be changed. So this is the way how to avoid so many tax amendments in terms of changing the success taxes. The third, in general, Mongolia should have free market price. People are afraid of politicians the politicians are scaring people with this free price, though this free price only will give true information about the market price, consumption, and people will be planning accordingly. Because we know one thing, international price goes up, this one will go up anyway. Exchange rate, tugrik depreciations, it will go up anyway. So people will have more better planning first. People will probably mostly more use public transports. And public transports will be more of higher quality because the more demand, and plus we should introduce the competition. It could be on the same schedule, there can be a couple different types of buses. Let them pay more, those who want to have more comfort. And plus, that's the market demand which will change the quality of services. Okay, and finally, the people will change their behavior because they adapting to the new changes, right? The only concern what the politicians say is, then how about the poor people? Then this price substitution or subsidies should go to really the poor people who cannot pay for that. So this is the way Mongolia need to change the way we are approaching to this issue.
And in 2022, and the oil refinery in Dornogov is expected to be operational. So once this refinery is completed, how will this impact fuel prices?
Well, I wish this one comes on time, which is not usually the case with Mongolian government projects. They're always delayed or postponed or doesn't go beyond the laying the foundation, as the case was with the power station number 5. They took 20 years, they laid foundations 10 times, at the end, no power station number 5. So I hope this time this government is, extraordinary, special, and they do on time this project. This project is will go, looks like, because $1 billion committed by the Indian government as a loan, discounted, cheaper loan, and the feasibility study is done, which will be presented next month, and after that this money is coming. But before the money comes, the government had borrowed already 250 billion tugriks from the development bank, and they started already the infrastructure of the road for 20 kilometers length, and the railway also for 20 kilometers length from Sanshan to this Altang Shiret Sum in Dorn Gobi Aimak. Plus, we need, and then I don't know how they will get money, we need to make 600 kilometers crude oil pipeline from Tamsuk in Dornodaimak, and where Chinese company are producing oil, and they are taking, of course, majority to China, and Mongolian share and the Chinese share both to China, except the royalty paid to the government. What happens if this refinery is made on time? From 2022 or 23, we need to buy at the international price that crude oil from China at the international price. So once the crude oil is coming to the, assuming that the pipeline is on time, everything, that the crude oil is coming through this pipeline to the refinery on time, it will be still international price crude oil. And plus this refinery itself should cover the cost. they will add their value-added, their price. So altogether, I don't think it will be substantially lower than the price we receive today. But one thing is better, that is supply. They finally will have a petroleum product supply, secured, which is from inside of the country. We don't need to ask somebody, go begging. And so that's from that we have the guarantee of supply. So by that time, probably we need, now Mongolia is developing about 1 million tons of crude oil per year, and we need 1.5 billion crude oil by that time of a refinery of opening. So hopefully we'll have another 500 million ton crude oil production capacity by that time, within 2-3 years.
And so moving on to our third topic, earlier this week, the Development Bank offered a $500 million bond on the international market without a government guarantee. So this bond is for 5 years with a coupon of 7.25%. So this is the first time that the Development Bank has issued a bond without a government guarantee. So what is exactly the purpose of this bond?
Well, that purpose is to pay another debt. You know, Development Bank and the government of Mongolia have now a new fashion of paying all debt with new debt. Plus, on the other side, those previous money they used, those projects they have invested, some of them are long-term, plant factories, cement factories, or roads that cannot pay back immediately. So we kind of borrowed a lot international price money, capital, and invest into the projects which gives a return in 20-30 years. So it was not very smart approach. But politicians do always similar things, you know. So and this is their character, you see. While they are in the post, they want to grow and grow to produce something, and then they re-elect again. So this time what happened? In 2012 March, this bank, Development Bank, issued $580 million bond, the terms of 5 years and 5.75 coupon rate. But when time came to pay, which happened last year in March, the government, which gave a guarantee to Development Bank bond, had to issue a new bond called Horaltai, $600 million, and 7 years and 8.75%. And they paid with this old loan with more expensive, more longer term loan once. So once they have paid the previous bond, now the Development Bank can issue a bond without government guarantee, not necessarily, though the interest rate is 7.25. But remember, last year, Mongolia has this Horalday rate was 8.75. Okay, 1%, 1.5% less. But however, it is still high yield bonds. And at the time when dollar is strengthening, it's a good chance for international investors to keep money in higher yield security. So that's why. But however, what's going to happen with this $500 million they have received already last week? That was, by the way, 8 times more subscription for this bond. So there is a great demand in the world, great pressure to this sort of bonds which have a high yield. What happens was, Development Bank has already a short-term loan with a floating rate, which means LIBOR plus certain percent. But LIBORs keep increasing now. It probably is coming altogether 7 to 25% now. So it's easier for them to pay, once they got the money, to pay the old small loans from other banks, international banks, and then go with now fixed rate, which is more better than LIBOR plus the straight rate. So that's their preferences, and $300 was paid back. Now out of $500 million coming to the country, 300's out, 200 million US dollar is remaining, which is good caution for US dollar and Mongolian tugrik rate.
Mm-hmm. And so earlier this week, you wrote that some of the main reasons for the depreciation in our domestic currency was due to the deficit in the balance of payments, as well as Bank of Mongolia not selling its reserves. Could you please elaborate on this?
Yeah, there is a big demand or pressure on Mongol Bank president to make intervention. And he is, I don't think he is not doing completely, but he is making intervention with smaller amount than before, probably for companies who, really Mongolian companies say, who need, say, import certain amount of $1 million, a few $1 million, say, medicine. Mm-hmm. Probably he's doing this sort of intervention rather than on the open market, which is quite normal. But however, Mongol Bank president is right not to making intervention right now, because we cannot compete this market power. That's mm-hmm. one thing, it's clear. Even use, okay, you keep it today, 2,000, 2,500 for a month or so, mm-hmm. but it will go again. You sell again, you sell again. It was the case with the previous governor. So we had them even a minus reserve, and they have borrowed, made swap with China, and they pretended to have a international reserve. So I don't think this current governor is going to repeat that mistake, which is right. And plus, Mongolian tugrik depreciation is not coming because Mongol Bank fault. It is because our payment balance deficit, which has to do with, as I said, with government payment to the abroad for their foreign debt, and also less coming the foreign direct investment. Even not only less foreign direct investment coming less, but also we are scaring those who are already here. The last week, Centuria Gold, which was the second largest investment company after Rio Tinto, mm-hmm. had to leave Mongolia, sold their interests with much smaller volume that they were expecting to earn in the country. So this is a very bad signal. And plus, the other bad news is, very interesting, the Mongolian parliament and the president have the same opinion on one issue of capital flow control. They are now introducing new law under the name of the currency regulation law. Mm-hmm. And they suggest to control the inflow and outflow of capital. And also they suggest Mongol Bank to be like a commercial bank, leaving aside the two-tier banking system of Mongolia, which we have been creating for the last 30 years, which was the base for development we had this year, for all these years. So if they will have this bank law, the regulation law, it is the same exactly what Zimbabwe and Venezuela did. And basically they have stopped the inflow of the capital. So hopefully the people will not allow it to do so. If it is the case, we will have a very much bad depreciation of Mongolian tugriks.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. This concludes our program for tonight. Please join us next week at the same time for another weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Good night.
Thank you very much. And you can see our the review also on the website jargal.defacto.com, and also you can read it in the DeFacto Gazeta in English, which you can subscribe on the same website. Thank you for your time.